Most people think Easter Island is a mystery, an island in the middle of the Pacific with large stone heads, with no clear explanation of how they got there. But the truth is far more interesting than it would seem, because Easter Island, known to its people as Rapa Nui, wasn't chaotic and it wasn't random. It was organized, purposeful, and we actually know far more about it than most people realize. Rapa Nui was settled around the year 1200 AD by Polynesian navigators who crossed thousands of miles of open ocean using stars, currents, and memory. When they arrived, the island was forested, volcanic, and completely isolated. No nearby neighbors, no trade routes, just one small society at the edge of the world. And almost immediately, they started carving the Moai. The Moai weren't just statues, they were representations of important ancestors carved to hold spiritual power. That's what the Rapa Nui called mana. The idea was simple. The dead could still protect the living. So the ancestors were turned to stone and then placed in a way so they could watch over all their people. That's why most Moai don't face the ocean. Almost all of them face inland, towards villages. They weren't looking out at enemies or explorers. They were watching their descendants. Each Moai stood on a stone platform called the ahu. That means the statue, the platform, and the village formed a single unit. Family, land, and ancestor, bound together in stone. This wasn't art for art's sake, but a social system. And they made a lot of them. Nearly 1,000 Moai exist today, ranging from small figures to massive statues weighing over 80 tons. Most were carved from a single volcanic crater called Ranu Rakuru, which functioned like an open-air factory. Even now, unfinished Moai still sit half carved in the rock, frozen. So this begs the question, how did they move them? Well, for a long time people assumed the Rapa Nui must have dragged the statues on logs. But experiments in the last few decades have proved that wrong, by something much simpler. With ropes tied to either side, teams could rock an upright Moai side to side, slowly walking it forward. The statues walked. And that detail matters because it completely changes how we think about their society. This wasn't a brute force chaos. It was coordination and planning. Groups worked together with shared techniques passed down over generations. As Moai construction expanded, the island became divided among the inhabitants. Each clan controlled land, resources, and ceremonial platforms. The size and number of Moai reflected the clan's status. Bigger statues meant stronger ancestry, greater influence, and more prestige. In other words, the Moai were political, but this system didn't last forever. Over centuries, the island's environment changed. Trees disappeared and soil degraded. Food became harder and harder to grow. And competition between clans intensified, and eventually the island entered a period of conflict. Some Moai were deliberately knocked over, toppled not by time, but by people. This marked a cultural shift. The old ancestry-focused system began to break down. In its place emerged something completely different. The Birdman cult. Once a year, competitors raced down cliffs, swam through shark-filled waters, and waited weeks on a rocky inlet for the first sooty tern egg of the season. The winner didn't just earn prestige. His clan gained power for the entire year. Leadership shifted from stone monuments to living champions. Until the 1700s, when the Europeans arrived. What followed was catastrophic. Disease, slave raids, forced removals, and by the 19th century, the population of Rapa Nui had collapsed to barely over 100 people. Much of the island's history, language, and oral tradition was lost during this period, not because it was forgotten, but because the people were nearly erased. And yet, the stone remains. Today, Moai still stand, or lie where they fell, as silent records of a society that was far more complex than the Mystery Island myth suggests. They weren't built by a lost civilization. They weren't made with alien technology. They were created by skilled navigators, engineers, and planners who adapted to some of the most isolated environments on Earth. Easter Island isn't confusing because we know nothing of it. It's just confusing because we've been telling the wrong story.